Knowledge for Men, episode 59.
Welcome to knowledgeformen.com, where boys turn into men, where men turn into leaders, into lions, the ferocious few who stand strong, a place where you grow to become the man you were born to be. It's time to take massive action towards the life you want. Get the health, get the relationships, business, and career you've always dreamed of. Achieve a level of success and happiness that you've been searching for so many years. Life has given you enough, and it's time to take a stand and take full control of your life. Stand with us as we interview the most inspiring and successful leaders to give you real-world advice to crush life and awaken the sleeping giant inside of you.
This episode is brought to you by my private online meds group called The Lion's Den. You can check it out at knowledgeformen.com and click on The Lion's Den. If you've been listening to this podcast and you like the content, but find it hard to find other guys out there to relate to, talk to, share your wins and challenges with, maybe you're on your own path of personal development and other guys think it's weird or they're just not interested in what you're doing. You kind of feel like you're alone on this mission, but you're not. There's thousands of other guys out there who are on the same path, and I've been putting together a group called The Lion's Den to try and find these guys, bring them together. Hey, I know it's hard to make the push towards greatness in your life, and I found that the best way to get somewhere you've never been is to surround yourself with other people who are already there or who are on the same path as you. So The Lion's Den does just that. It's a group of men who want to achieve greatness in all areas of life: health, wealth, relationships, and personal growth. Check it out at knowledgeformen.com and click on The Lion's Den. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Jonathan Christian Hudson, the CEO of The Social Man, an 8-figure e-commerce website teaching men to be more confident and get better with women. Jonathan, happy to have you on the show.
I am enjoying a latte, and my energy is coming back to life. So I'm thankful for being here, man.
Sounds good. And we always start out the show with a favorite success quote, something that the guest has lived by. So go ahead and share with the audience what you got for us and explain why.
Sure. Well, I hope this doesn't come across as too narcissistic, although that wouldn't be inaccurate. It's going to be one of my own, and that is that the three greatest searches in life for love, for purpose, and for truth are never resolved at our convenience. And that has been very true in my own life. Let me repeat that one more time. The greatest searches in life for love, for purpose, and for truth are never resolved at our convenience. In my life, I've experienced, I grew up in a great loving household, upper middle class. Everything should have been easy, but as many of us know, it's not easy. And breaking out and becoming your own person is a difficult thing. And what I found is that the search and the challenge to discover these things really becomes that is who you become, and that is the story of your life. And to embrace that, and to embrace the challenges, and to embrace the uncertainty, is to put yourself in the best possible position to discover what is very meaningful, very true, and very unique to you in your own success.
I like that. And how does that make you feel, John, when you're sharing your values with the audience on a mic right now?
Well, if it has a meaningful impact on them, then that would make me be very happy. I have an opportunity to, we've had the opportunity to teach tens of thousands of guys now through our courses. So I'm not going to lie. The positive feedback has been a great and ongoing feature of what we've been able to do with this business, and it's fueled us to keep going and keep growing our mission. But it's one of many things that we have to take into consideration as we move forward. I'd love to focus on the reverberations of positive feedback all day long and live in that space. But the realities are sometimes you have to get in and focus on managing a company, managing a team, managing employees, and you just got to balance all those things out.
And I think a lot of people are wondering what is the success, and how did you build this business? What business is it exactly? How does it work? So go ahead, Jonathan, share with the audience how you got started with what you do.
Sure. Well, we'll try to keep this pretty abbreviated. I never love when these stories of self become too long and self-indulgent. But we'll keep it pretty short. I dropped out of college in my late teens to start a few companies. We got some funding. One of them actually picked up. It was a security software company, and I ran that for 4 years. We ended up selling it to a firm in Silicon Valley, and it later went public. And while it was a pretty great adventure in education, my social life suffered tremendously. And during that whole time, I had a lot of social anxiety. And in return to college at the age of 24, really uncertain, like how to actually interact with people my own age, or for that matter, people a little bit younger than me. It was around that time that one of my former employees introduced me to a guru in the dating advice community. And this guru shall remain nameless, but he was featured fairly prominently in the book The Game. And he and I linked up. We ended up building a pretty significant business out of that. And at the time, we were the biggest coaching operation in the world. But by 2006, I'd gotten a lot better with women, and we had a nice little operation in the business. And I moved to New York. 2 days after moving to New York, my girlfriend and I broke up. She was one of the big reasons for me moving out there. And 2 weeks after, the guy who was running the business fired me. And so it kind of threw my world into the tumbler. And one thing that I left out of this is that while the business was growing considerably and there were a lot of promises made to me about future revenues, I wasn't getting paid nearly as much as I thought I was going to be. Took on a lot of debt accordingly. And 6 months after moving to New York, maybe I found myself in about $100,000 of debt between personal debt and a home that I owned that had lost about half its value during the mortgage bust. So at that point, there was also, I'll leave this to the future history books, but there was a Jell-O shot company that happened somewhere in there that didn't really work out. And so around 2007, I started what is now The Social Man. Knew how to talk to girls, knew how to help guys talk to girls. So that was the only thing left. I couldn't get a job. I was going to interviews. Nobody would hire me. And that was in like 2007. So here we are, quite a few years later. And the business has grown quite a bit. When I was 30, I actually moved home with my parents for 6 months just to save money and keep focusing on building this. And this year, it looks like we're going to break about 8 figures in revenue. So, it's been a big turnaround. Got things handled with women, got things handled with work, trying to get things handled with heart and spirit at this point in my life, and trying to get better at surfing along the way.
I like the story. It sounds like you're kind of working on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Right.
You started at the bottom, you got your business, got the girls, and now you're working on, you even mentioned like spirituality and growth. And I'm interested in why did you start The Social Man? Why did you go this route? Did you kind of fall back on, hey, I'm good being social, I'm good with girls, this is a skill I have, let's see what I can do?
Actually, yes. I literally had no other options at the time. I was, applying for jobs on Craigslist, and, I had a lot of people in my life telling me, oh, you need you need a real job. You need to, just keep pounding the pavement and knocking on doors. I kept getting rejected from consulting jobs. I knew the owner of a pretty big consulting company, and he was like, yeah, you're too entrepreneurial, man. Sorry, not going to hire you. So this was literally the only thing that there was. And I remember reading a John Mayer quote around the time. I think it was John Mayer, and he said something to the extent of there was never a plan B. And I took that attitude into this business. Like there could be no plan B. There is only this option. And if this does not succeed, then I might as well just give up. And fortunately, it's something that I enjoy. It's something you enjoy. I think, helping other people get better at communication, finding meaning in their lives, and having better relationships with the opposite sex. I mean, what's more meaningful than that? It was certainly a nice change from, selling enterprise software to biotech firms. So it was helpful that it was something that I was particularly passionate about. But yeah, I mean, there was literally like nothing else to do. So here we are.
And here we are. And John, what was that like having to do jobs and then move home at the age of 30 with the intention that you were going to build some businesses and that you were going to succeed at something, and having to live at home with that uncertainty, going that far as to, live at home. So what was that like, and when did you have your tipping point?
Yeah, it was a fair degree of resignation. And, I was somebody who I've struggled a lot with ego in my life. I mean, I think I'm not dissimilar to a lot of guys who, you have a conception of who you are. Do you ever watch The Wire?
Yeah, I've seen a few episodes. My brother's really into it.
A few episodes. Okay. There's a scene where there's this dealer named, I think it's Marlowe, and he kind of runs the streets by season 4. He walks up to the security guard at a store, and the security guard's trying to stop him from stealing something, but Marlowe, like, he just runs shit. Like, you don't stop Marlowe from stealing things. And the guard doesn't really know Marlowe, but he can sense that Marlowe's got a presence. And so Marlowe walks out the store kind of with this lollipop in his mouth that he's stolen right in front of the security guard. And the security guard runs up to him and he's like, kind of tapping on his shoulder. He's like, hey man, you can't do that. Marlowe looks at him and he goes, he looks him right in the eyes and he goes, man, he said, you think it's one way, but it's actually the other way. The way he delivers it, it's such a profound expression of like the reality that you're living in is nowhere near like the reality that exists. And, later the guard ends up dead, sadly, because Marlowe has all the power in the streets. But, to loop this back to what I was saying, I think that for myself and many of the men who I've worked with, there's a sense of who you are and who you tell yourself that you are. And that can fuel great things. I mean, if I look at like Kanye West, his sense of who he is has fueled a lot of accomplishment. And early in my life, everything from dropping out of college to, some of the women I dated, I was dating these cover models on magazines when I was like 5 figures in debt. And a lot of guys hear that and they're like, oh, well, you need a lot of money to date beautiful women. It's like, no, you just need like certainty and self-belief. And, and a little bit of charisma doesn't hurt. So this sort of fall in my life of 2000 or late 2006, early 2007, and subsequently moving home with my parents in, I guess that would have been 2009. It was a massive reckoning of my ego in the collision of what I thought things were and how things actually are. And in the end, it ended up benefiting me greatly because I feel that there's, at least in present day with myself and with other guys who have helped through this transformation, when you have genuine confidence and self-esteem based not on, what you expect to do, but what you've actually done, the effects that it has on other people, and you have a history of success. There's a great quote by Aldous Huxley about the man going through the door in the wall and coming out wiser and more self-assured. You feel a lot more strength in your confidence and your self-esteem, and you feel less of a need to throw it in other people's faces. So even though there was that reckoning period, and I was living in Michigan in the winter, like with my parents at 30, it sucked. But there was always a sense in my mind of, I'm going to get past this. I know I will get past this. I'm going to give it my all. And I know that this will mark the moment of a great turnaround in a story that will inspire a lot of people. So I kind of held that in mind. Listened to a lot of Jay-Z in the meantime to keep my spirits high. And
that's not something that I've heard on the show. Listening to Jay-Z.
No? Oh man,
what's your song, Jay-Z?
Jay-Z and Biggie. I mean, there's so many that what's the line? There's one line he goes, I thought I told you characters, I'm not a rapper. I got nephews to look after. I'm not looking at you dudes, I'm looking past you. It's on the Blueprint. I can't remember the name of the song, but like that was the line that always stuck out to me because like we were marketing to like the pickup artist crowd at that point. And a lot of people were like, oh, this Christian Hudson guy is a PUA. And I was like, I'm not a PUA. I've never been a PUA. I don't give a shit about PUA. And, and I did want to help guys get better with women. I wanted to help them become more confident. But that was that phase in the business. We were like really marketing the PUA crowd. And I just kept thinking like, I'm looking past you. Like I'm looking past this whole thing about just going out and fucking girls.
Let's talk about that. That's actually, there's a huge shift going on in the last 3 years or so that I've noticed where this whole pickup artist thing is just weird. It's weirding people out. Girls don't like it. You might see results, but you're really just seeing results because you're taking action. It's not the pickup moves. It's the action that you're doing. So if people are seeing results and they think being a pickup artist works, it's not about the pickup artist. It's just because you're out there and you're trying. If you try more, you're going to see some results. But, I'm seeing a lot of guys where they're coming out and they're just talking about becoming a natural, fun guy, building a great life and becoming the man that women want to be around. And with that, you're going to start seeing results with women as a byproduct of building an awesome life.
Yeah, that's right.
And what are your thoughts on this and this kind of shift in men's programs, all around the world?
As we were discussing before we kind of got rolling here, there's an interesting like bifurcation in the men's movement. And I think on one hand, you have guys who are really positive, optimistic, and like working to build a bridge to the opposite sex. And on the other hand, you have guys who are like angry, pessimistic, and want to revert to the sort of 1950s culture of like, hey, men have the power, authority, go out and do the work, and women take care of us. And there's a clear differentiation of gender roles. And what's interesting is the guys on the second side if you look at evolution always proceeds forward, and it always, to quote Ken Wilber, evolution always transcends and includes everything from the past. And a lot of the guys who are sort of the angry, you might call them like the men's right activists, they want to return to this almost mythical past of like where men had all the power, controlled society, and women just kind of massaged them and cooked and cleaned and were like hooked up with sex. And there was sort of a historical anomaly. If you go back to pre-agricultural societies, you actually had the gods and goddesses were of equal stature in general in those societies. So you didn't have like a god who was a male, you had male and female gods. And it wasn't until you switched from men and women sort of living in these tribes to, the big switch was when agriculture came about and when men started controlling all the resources and building surpluses and building these social structures where they were in charge. And women generally accepted that because it was agriculture is not conducive. Like women working in the fields, it lowers birth rates considerably. So they were willing to give up the power to let men kind of build the surpluses in society and take society to the next level. And that's when you started to get male gods supplanting and in many cases just so. I share this all because I think, when I heard this, it blew me away because I've got this idea in my mind, I think of male and female gender roles, polarity, and what is the correct male gender role. And when you talk to evolutionary biologists, everybody says, oh, well, men do this and women do that. But, and this is kind of like how we're built. But if you go back like beyond the agricultural phase, there was a lot of labor that we actually shared. And there was a mutual respect for each other in society. So what is happening now, to bring this back to your question, is I think that, the pickup artist movement was the first legitimate time that men were able to say, hey, we want to get better. We want to have conversations with each other about how to like keep up with the growth in culture that feminism has brought upon us. And as I said, that has bifurcated into guys like Mike and Max, some of these guys we were talking about earlier, who are really trying to do positive, gender-friendly growth. And then you've got these men, the men's rights guys who want to revert back to this, archaic world that kind of existed for a brief period of time. But where I see it all going, frankly, and what I'm very excited about is I think that, as I said, evolution transcends and includes. And where I think men are going as a sex, where I think our species is going together, you're always going to have angry people, feminists and masculinists who are taking polemical positions. But talking to guys like you, seeing so many of our clients in the directions that they're taking, and some of the guys who we talked about earlier, these are actually guys who've gone through our wheelhouse. They've been clients of ours. They've bought our programs, and seeing what they're sharing in the world, it gives me a lot of hope for the emerging relations of gender, and hopefully we can move back to a place where there is a clear and a respected appreciation for the differences between the sexes and for the unique things that we bring to the table. And men are going to be allowed to be a little bit more emotional. Women are going to be allowed to be a little bit more physical, and we're all going to be okay with that. So that was a really long. We talked about a lot of stuff there. We could get a little bit more specific if you want, like in practical. But
yeah, that was a lot of information there. But I'm with you, and I want to know where you're taking Social Man. Like, where does Social Man fit with all of this right here in this industry?
Yeah, I mean, well, for years I blogged and YouTubed and posted and tried to do a lot of the sort of organic growth type stuff that you're probably familiar with, the 1,000 True Fans model of building a business. And I was doing that at the same time that I was trying to sell products as well. And so it's interesting because despite everything I've said, if you look to some of our marketing, it's pretty over the top. We have a product called the Girlfriend Activation System. We have a few others. And if you look at these products, the marketing is pretty, I don't want to say lowbrow, but it's like women look at it and are typically either horrified or offended, or some of them are fascinated. But what I've noticed, Andrew, is like we, as men, like we're gonna keep pushing forward. The leaders of this movement are gonna keep trying to be optimistic, positive, and spread this message to the world. But there's a lot of people who this is gonna take it's gonna take years, decades, centuries to to evolve. Where we are right now is a place where men are generally still very, we go onto websites like the Chive, we love pornography, we're attracted to boobs and butts and, and stories about cats. And that's not just men, that's people in general. Our base instincts are attracted to simple problems, simple solutions. To get specific, we sell a product that is we sell it over and over and over again in our marketing. Get a girlfriend, get a girlfriend, get a girlfriend. And what I've found is that direct marketing for myself and for my business it's a great entry point to reach a lot of people who would never have heard some of the things that you and I are talking about today, because these are guys who are, again, they're clicking around on random dude websites. They're looking at pictures of, 6 celebrities who look great with their, with their bikinis on, or, some sports score. And these are guys who they're not listening to podcasts. They're not engaged in these conversations, but they do want a girlfriend. And so direct marketing, which is something that the Social Man, if you look at our website, and we've got a decent website, in a few months it'll be a lot nicer, but it gets very little of our attention. I think the last time I blogged there was like 2 years ago. Everything we focus on is on building incredibly captivating funnels that get people to buy our products. And there's a big economic reason for that. I mean, it makes good money and it's beneficial for our business. But beyond that, I see it as a fantastic way to meet people where they are. The biggest mistake any guru can make is to sit on top of a mountain and just expect people to come see him. The rare guru can achieve that, maybe Lao Tzu, but for the rest of us trying to spread a message to the world, it's a lot more useful to meet somebody where they are. So with direct marketing, we have the opportunity to really get into their brains, into their belief systems, and connect with them, empathize with them, show them that we care, and bring them into a desire that they so strongly want, which is to get that girlfriend. And once they join our community, that's where we have the opportunity to really, not just deliver all the tips and tactics and techniques of getting girlfriends, but really work on their beliefs, their worldviews, and their self-conception.
I personally, I'm interested in how you set up your marketing and your funnel systems on the back end. I we'll have to talk a post show here, but let's focus on the Social Man and, some of the strategies and philosophies that you guys teach, in some of your products, like the girlfriend activation system and some of the things that you've learned, just in your journey of improving with women and coaching guys to help them overcome their fears with women. So I want to go into, let's start off with, what are some of the characteristics in men that you've noticed are naturally just attractive to women?
Sure. A few of the big ones that I can talk about. I'm sure I'm not the first person who's come on your show and talked about dominance. Just guessing that. Am I right?
There's been some discussion about dominance. Yes.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one. I mean, we've been raised in a society that sort of beat dominance out of us, and everything from, lack of recess to playgrounds getting safer, and, just kind of the messages that we send to boys and as they're growing up these days, it's like, don't be dominant, be passive. So yet women generally respond very well to a dominant man. And I'll give you an example from the program that I just got a testimonial about this the other day. This is years ago. I remember I was out in the Lower East Side in New York and I saw this cute girl get into a taxi, and we briefly made eye contact, and her taxi just sitting in a light waiting for it to change. So I just walked up, kind of knocked on the window, and I said, hey, what's up? She kind of rolled her window down and she's like, hi. And I said, Jonathan, nice to meet you. She goes, well, nice to meet you too. I'm so-and-so. I said, listen, I don't know where you're going. I got to stick around here, but I'd like to know you. Give me your number. I just kind of pulled out my phone and just assumed, right? And the frame and the whole thing was like, I want to know this girl. I'm unashamed of that fact. I'm not trying to like hit on her or impress her or anything like that. Just like, I find her very attractive and I want to know her, and I'm making a very strong request. It's kind of like that scene in Vicky Cristina Barcelona where Javier Bardem approaches the two girls at the table and puts his offer out there. So that was a good example of dominance. Another one that I always like to tell guys, there was a time that a girl was over for a date in my house. It was, we were having dinner. We had been introduced through a couple of friends. And, and as dinner was wrapping up and as we were having dessert, I just got up, very solid eye contact on her, walked around the table, just kept looking at her. She wasn't sure what's coming. And I just kind of like bent over and looked her in the eyes and said, "You look amazing right now, and I want to kiss you." And she kind of demurred a little bit, and she's like, "No, I don't. It'd just be weird." And she was referring to the fact that our friend had introduced us, and I very very gently and tenderly grabbed the back of her head and kind of turned it towards me, just looked her in the eyes and said, "No, it's going to be amazing," and just leaned in and started kissing her, and it was. And you have to respect boundaries, of course. That there's a difference between sort of that apprehensive, no, which sort of signals like, I'm not certain about this, and I want to make sure that you're certain about this, versus like, absolutely not, I'm not interested. Don't, don't keep crossing my boundaries.
Right, like a playful no.
Yeah.
Versus the no, which is no, get away from me, or no, not yet. Like, no, not yet.
Exactly. So, but those are a couple examples of dominance, and I find that that's always the trait. When I'm coaching guys, that's one of the ones that I always try to lead with, is because most guys just lack that, and so we want to get them focused on it. Another big trait is mysteriousness. So not answering every question completely. If I was talking to a girl at the bar right now, I think that this conversation has been like, you'll speak for 10 seconds, I'll speak for 10 minutes. and I hope it's okay that way. But if it was at a bar, I'd try to have not quite the inverse ratio, but at the very least, 50-50, and kind of making her work to pull information out of me. And, it's some half answers, some coyness. So mysteriousness, dominance, tenderness is another really big one the guys overlook. If you're going to be dominant, you also need to be able to be very tender and authentic. And those are two things that the guys sort of leave out.
And you bring up a really good point right there. For the sake of this podcast, it's perfectly fine. You're speaking the majority of the time. I mean, I'm interviewing you, makes sense. But when you're having an interaction, a social interaction, especially with a woman, you're going to come in most likely at a higher level, maybe 80-20, but at some point you want to balance out with 50-50. She's speaking 50% of the time, you're speaking 50% of the time, and maybe you kind of fall back and she's speaking more of the time, versus you come in at 90-10 and you're speaking 90% of the time and she's speaking 10% of the time. It's like you're not even listening to what she has to say. Like, you're not even being present in this interaction. And, guys are wondering, why they're not connecting with a woman. It's because you're not, you got to listen to the woman. So you bring up a really good point right here.
Right. Which is a shame, and which is actually, I feel like it takes away from what the woman wants, which is to share herself. The thing that a lot of guys screw up, right? It's very easy to get a woman talking to you if she esteems you, if she sees you as a person of value, if she is intrigued by you, and because you've been a little mysterious, or if she is like engaged by you because you've been playful and you've kind of teased and challenged her. So all three of those things, are kind of how you get a woman to open up. And the problem is that, a lot of guys don't know how to accomplish that in a very short and succinct way at the start of the conversation. And, so they kind of overcompensate and just do all the talking. But if you can get those three, even one of those three things right, and certainly all three of those would be great, it's a lot easier to get a woman to open up to you.
Right. And Christian, I just came back from a conference here in San Diego. It was like a men's conference. And one of the activities was, the guys would line up and there'd be girls at the other end. And the guys had to simply approach the girls without saying anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it got to the point where this problem was happening over and over again, where the girls had to stand up and say, hey, guys, they grab the mic, you guys are approaching us and you're walking up to us like you're going to fight us. And it's really frightening us. And it throws us off, and it changes our whole entire perception of you based on your walk, your approach to the girl. And so by the time the guys got to the girls, they were like really intimidated. Any thoughts on this?
So a little science here. There's something called emotional contagion. It's, a very simple explanation of it is like yawning. So yawning is kind of this weird evolutionary hack that like, it's something that happened with our brains to like, well, the best that we know is that like when you yawn, like somebody else yawns and it's addictive because of like our mirror neurons and the way that our brains function. We were built to do stuff like this, to empathize, to feel what other people are feeling, and it's an evolutionary advantage. And yawning is just kind of this blip that came about. And if you look at like autistic children, Autistic children actually don't mirror yawns. It's incredible. If you yawn in front of an autistic child, they just don't mirror the yawn because of part of their brain that's been damaged. It's called the amygdala. It's kind of like the radar center for emotions. So I share this because I think that when guys I want to just contextualize the approach. Women, they always say, women can feel your presence, and it's not what you say, it's how you say it. What that really means is that her amygdala, her radar center in her brain for her emotions, is picking up the vibe, the emotions that you're feeling, and is processing them. And the question is, do those emotions feel good or do they feel bad? So when guys approach women, oftentimes, if you haven't done this a lot, like you're going to approach typically in a state of heightened, your whole nervous system is heightened, probably because you have anxiety, you have nervousness, you have some fear. And so your whole vibe, your whole energy is going to, she's going to pick that up. And if that's tinged with any sort of like aggression or too much dominance, then it feels really bad. Now, what's interesting is that if you approach a woman in a very dominant way, but you're also relaxed, it feels very good. It feels very, very good for her. So where I think these guys, it sounds like I would just guess that they were kind of messing up is there was some degree of fear, nervousness, performance anxiety that they were sending out along with that sort of aggressive energy with, which the women take those two things together, like nervous energy and slight aggression. Basically that's the same thing that a guy's going to feel when he's like charging down a battlefield. That's not going to feel good to a woman. So I'm not surprised that they felt that way, but being able to kind of moderate that nervousness and just take some deep breaths and, say, hey, I got this. That's where a lot of the good feelings are going to come from.
Yeah, it really shows in the body language. And let's just keep moving along here in this scenario. So
Sure.
the guy meets the girl, and he's moving forward, and he's got the phone number, and the challenge is going to be how do you start dating this girl, and how do you manage that process, and how do you turn this girl into your girlfriend if you really like her, and what are some things that guys should be doing and things that they shouldn't be doing?
Yeah, well, there's some big concepts and there's a lot of specifics. I mean, I think that it's funny. I was just talking to a guy a new friend here, and he's like struggling with a dating situation, and it is like highlights perfectly the challenge that guys have, because there's two things, right? There's the logistics of it, which is like, how do I text her? What dates do I take her on? What do I say on the dates? All that. And then there's also like the person you are through that dating process, and all the subtext that she's getting from interacting with you, and vice versa. So the logistics of it, it's like, I can tell you like, okay, when you like go for a kiss, do this. When you take her on a date, talk about that. What this guy was talking to me about today, and what I think is most interesting, is the thing that most guys do when they like a girl and they really like her and they don't want to screw it up, is they try to lock down the future, and they get so nervous in the moment that they forget to have fun in the moment, because they're always thinking about what's going to happen next. Does this girl like me? Am I going to see her again? And they're just like constantly in the future. And I did this for years with girls I liked, and it'll go so far as to be like, oh, so what are you doing this weekend? And oh, you're going out with them. Oh, cool. Like you're just trying to like lock down plans for the future and sort of pry into, this girl's life. We've all done that. It creeps out in different ways. So the attitude that I try to tell guys to take into the whole dating process, and specifically into their interactions, first date, second date, third date, is what I call live in the moment, flirt with the future. So that means that when you are with her, you are having as much fun as humanly possible with another human being. You're present, you're connected, you're enjoying your time with her, you're laughing with yourself, with her, and you're just there. You're just present. And if the world were to end tomorrow, you would walk away from that date saying, you know what? I had a great fucking time. That was awesome. And that's like, if you've got that attitude when you're on your dates, the thing is like, which guy is a girl more likely to want to hang out with again? The guy who's trying to lock down the future and not even focused on the moment, or the guy who she just has so much fun with every time she hangs out with him that she just wants to see him again because she knows it's going to be a good time? So that's the live in the moment part of it. The flirt with the future part of it is that you're kind of dropping hints about what you're going to be doing in the future. So here's a classic example I always use. In New York, there's a pizza place called Artichoke. It's my favorite pizza in the city. If I was talking to a girl and I was like, oh yeah, like what's your favorite pizza? And she was like, oh, this, that, the other, Ruby Rosa maybe. I'd be like, oh, have you been to Artichoke yet? She goes, no. I'm gonna be like, oh my God, you haven't been there? Okay, next time we hang out, we are definitely going there. It is just the best pizza in the world. And then I'd like jump right back into talking about the pizza. I'd be like, it's like, do you like artichokes? Do you like cheese? Do you like pizza? Well, they all come together in this magical thing. And then I just move off the topic. I wouldn't like try to lock down the date at that point. I wouldn't be like, so what's going on next Tuesday? Can I take you to Artichoke? So I would do that. I would talk about movies I'd seen. I would talk about adventures I want to have. I might even come up with like, fake things like, oh my God, like we're gonna, you haven't been to the south of France yet, or like, yeah, I haven't been to the south of France either. That's my dream vacation. Okay, tell you what, like, let's have 2 more glasses of wine, get on the first plane to the south of France, and just make all of our friends jealous on Facebook for all the amazing pictures we're taking. So, that's a sort of absurd, future memory, but if you do enough of this stuff, if you do this not just with pizza and not just with the south of France, but with like a lot of stuff, like my favorite, coffee house in the city is Sanctuary Tea. This place is amazing. Like you got to go sometime. Like if we hang out again, we'll definitely end up going there. You hear what I'm saying in my voice, right? If we hang out again sometime, we'll definitely end up going there. So
it's like, it's kind of a sense of mystery. It's like, is he going to ask me, or she's kind of waiting for it, but she doesn't get it.
Again, you're just having a lot of fun. You're talking, like if I was talking about Sanctuary Tea, I'd be like, oh my God, this place, it's so incredible. They've got like matcha green tea lattes, just such a cute environment. And this guy East, he runs the bar. He's just he's so funny and he's so flamboyantly gay, but like you just love him to death, and he's like just incredible, and his energy is just this weird, incredible, awesome, exciting thing, and he makes the place just as much as the tea itself. And so I'm like having fun talking about it. And, at that point, like there's a lot for her to pick up on. She'd be like, oh, like, she could ask about like how he's flamboyantly gay. She could ask about, the lattes. She could ask about, the atmosphere of the place. And so you're not trying to lock her in to actually doing it. You're just having a lot of fun talking about the date itself. And in this certain situation, listen, I'm obviously sharing a lot of stuff about how you would do a lot of the talking. Hopefully you wouldn't be doing this the whole time, right? A lot of it is going to be about her telling you stuff that she's done. And actually a really great version of this, technique, if you want to call it that, is telling her, oh, you have to show me that, or you'll have to take me to this. So she's like, she tells you about a movie that you've never seen. Oh man, like, yeah, I've never seen that. You'll have to rent it and bring it over sometime. Or a place that she loves to get dessert. Yeah, I've never been there. Like you'll have to treat me sometime. So it's that inversion and getting her to tell you about why she loves stuff and what she's so enthusiastic about. So I mean, that's stuff that you'll really talk about like in the initial interaction in the first date. As you start moving further along in the dating process, the content changes, but the context is still live in the moment, flirt with the future. So I think that concept, and to bring this back to what I was saying at the start of this guy I was talking to earlier today, he's just like so hung up on like what the future is. He's going through like a kind of breakup with the girl, but he wants to see her again, but he initiated the breakup. And so now like he's trying to put space between them because he's hurt and she wants to be like friends. And yeah, we were talking. He's like, so should I like ask her if like we should touch base in 30 days? It's like, no, man, just be like totally cool, be nonchalant, just be like, look, we need to establish some boundaries. We need to establish some space. And like, we'll just kind of leave. He's a Christian. I was like, just tell her you'll leave it up to God and kind of see what comes about. So, I think when you've got a really fun vibe in the present and you have like optimistic, positive faith in what's going to happen in the future, it's a really, unless you want to attract really negative, cynical women in your life, that's a really great, approach to having great women through the dating process.
Yeah, those are some really good points there. And you've been coaching and creating products and services for guys for quite some time now. And what do you see are some of the biggest mistakes that guys are making with women and dating? And if they would just stop doing these things, they'd probably see significant results in their dating life.
Sure. I'll tell you a big one that stands out to me is the day after sex. And for some guys, this is going to be like, they're going to be like, man, I'm not going to do that. I need something like
I'm
earlier
trying
in
to
the
get that
process.
number. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. But this one I find is always interesting to highlight because it's this weird thing that happens with guys. It's like there's a lot, and women can be the same way. I don't want to say that it's just based on one gender, but with guys, like a lot of guys I've talked to, it's like they'll get to the point where they have sex with the girl, and they'll be like really warm and friendly and all that, like leading up to sex. And then after sex, they're like, okay, like I need to be cool now. And like I'll see these text message exchanges. We've got a couple of these in our members community that I've like highlighted just to like try to teach people don't do this. Like where these guys like things were going great and they slept with the girl, and then like after sex, like just totally cool and totally nonchalant. In the guy's mind, it's because he's like, well, I just gave a lot up to her, and like I don't want to come across as too needy now, and but from the girl's perspective, it's like, wow, like I just gave everything up to him and he's like totally cooled off. Like what's going on here? Yeah, so I see that one a lot. And on the flip side, I also see guys who get overly needy when they've had sex with the girl. Okay, here's a big issue. And it's not just about sex, but there's different like I guess you could call them escalation points in the relationship. There's, you get the number, you go on the first date, second date, third date, at some point sex happens. And there's these different escalation points, and a big mistake that both men and women make is assuming that because you're at one point, the rest are kind of like in the bag. And I remember making this mistake like years ago. I think I was like, in my early 20s. I had a great first date with a girl, or at least I thought it was a great first date. And I like just assumed that like she was going to be my next girlfriend. And so I started I started treating her that way. And like, I called her up like real early the next day. I'm like, hey, like, it was great to see you last night. Like, let me know when you want to hang out again. Like, I'm free tonight. And I felt like I was being nonchalant and like cool about it. But the problem is I completely removed any mystery and any of the fun of the dating game. And one of the things I talk about in my course, and this is an adaptation from what David D'Angelo, aka Eben Pagan, said years ago, is like, give her the gift of wondering about you. I think the beauty of mystery is, think about a time, Andrew, and this has happened to you, and for the listeners, think about a time like that you were texting with a girl, and then like you stopped hearing from her for maybe an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, and you're like, whoa, like where does she go? And like your heart just stops. And then every like text message that comes through, every email that comes through, you're like wondering if it's her. And there's actually a very specific dopamine is the chemical associated with this in your brain. There's like literally you are linking like pleasure with receiving that text message. And every time another text message comes through, you're like, is it her? Is it her? And so you're like producing all this dopamine. And then finally the text message comes through from her, and you're like, and it feels good. You're like, all right, I'm back in the game. And in the meantime, though, it's very tense, but the tension and release, if there is no release, it's painful and it's miserable. And we've all had those times when we've been texting a girl and there's no release whatsoever. And we're like, oh shit, like she doesn't actually like me. And then we get needy and we do all sorts of stupid shit. But when there's that tension and then the release, it feels really good. And one of the things that I try to work with guys on is like create that tension and enjoy creating that tension, and don't feel bad about creating that tension. Like don't feel bad about creating some space, creating some mystery. Don't call her up, necessarily the next day. Like just maybe shoot her a text, maybe not. Again, I go into logistics extensively in the course, but like you don't need to like, don't assume that things are on just because you had a great first date or just because you had sex. Like I've seen guys who like, they'll have sex with the girl and the exact same thing. They'll call her up the next day. They'll be like, wow, that was great. Like, when are you free again this week? It'd be great to do that again. And, sometimes that's appropriate. Usually it's not. It really depends on kind of what the girl has shown you. And I'd trend towards usually it's not. So yeah, like allow for that mystery without being too cool. When you're talking to her, when you're texting her, when you're on the phone with her, like be present, be having fun, but like, the space exists for a reason, and you should be comfortable using that space to both your advantage and also to her enjoyment. Don't torture her. Don't like use this to manipulate women. But like, if you really like a girl, like give her that gift of wondering about you and of that tension and of the eventual release. And it's such an enjoyable way to experience the dating process.
Yeah, I like that. And mystery, if used correctly, it can be very powerful. And I think a little dash of mystery is not going to hurt you at all. But if you're too mysterious, then it's like you're just not revealing anything about yourself. It's like anytime, a girl asks you something, you're like, no, I can't, because it's not mysterious. I need to be mysterious. Then at that point, you're just holding yourself back, and you're holding back from connecting with a woman, which is really the goal. Like, you want to connect. And now it's time that we enter the knowledge round. Are you ready, Jonathan?
Sure. All right, let's do it.
All right, I want to give you more details about the Lion's Den. It's a private Facebook group where you post your goals in health, wealth, relationships, and personal growth. The guys hold you accountable, and you have a place where you can get instant feedback from other high-performing men from around the world. You can get more details at knowledgeformen.com and click on the Lion's Den. There's men's coaches in there, there's dating coaches, fitness coaches, millionaires, guys with startups, guys who just graduated college and are happy to be surrounded by so many guys just making it happen for themselves. There's fathers in there, military personnel, and just all walks of life from all over the world. 70 guys strong right now and growing every day. But the one thing that we all have in common is that we just want to achieve greatness. We want to push ourselves. We want to challenge ourselves. We want to really just become the men we want to become, and do it not alone. We don't want to do this journey, take this path alone. We want to do it together with other men. And that's what I find so powerful about this group. We also do monthly Google Hangouts, which is sort of like an online meetup with about 12 guys in each hangout. So you can meet all these guys and build stronger relationships with other high-performing men. And there's also a structure to each hangout. Guys, this group only costs $19 a month for a limited time. You can get more details, and you can set up a consultation with me at knowledgeformen.com and click on the Lion's Den and get started from there.
Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime.
All right, Jonathan, what advice would you give to someone who's feeling lost or unsure of their purpose?
I would say take considerable risks in life that make you uncomfortable, and follow the thing that is the most interesting to you in your life right now. Whether that be music, art, self-improvement, certain type of business. Follow that thing in your life that's most interesting to you, and be willing to take extensive risks and fail miserably. Obviously, that's a little bit more difficult if you've got a mortgage and 2 kids. That's a little bit more of a borderline case. But for younger guys, for anybody who doesn't have extensive commitments, take those risks. And I'll tell you what, one final thing is, if you've got dependents, then all bets are off if you got kids and a wife. But if you don't have any dependents, if the only thing holding you down is a mortgage, I mean, shit, man, I had a mortgage in Michigan. Like I said, it lost half of its value, but I was like, I need to get the fuck out of Michigan. I was like 26 years old. I had lived there my whole life. And I was like, I don't care what it takes. I'm going to get out. I'm going to get to New York. And, it was really hard. New York kicked my ass. I was in a lot of debt because of the home, but I got through it. And, I hope that some of the wisdom that I gained in the process is becoming somewhat evident here on this podcast.
It is. You got a thriving business. And Jonathan, is there anything that was holding you back from becoming the man you are now today?
I'm sure I'm not the first person to answer fear to this question. Eckhart Tolle's work on ego, like just if you read The Power of Now, there's a lot of discussion and a great framework for thinking about, what the ego is, how it protects us, and how it prevents us from taking risks. And I had a pretty big ego that did not want to admit to weakness. So I think that fear was, unquestionable. Well, not I think, but I know that, fear of taking risks, of putting myself out there, of realizing that I wasn't as good as my ego was telling me I was at certain things, those all got in the way of me, having success. You realize what your ego does in trying to protect itself and in trying to protect your self-conception. It's very difficult to tell yourself I'm successful and then put yourself into a situation where failure is likely. But I think that if you adjust your frame on what it is to be successful, I mean, for me to be successful is to put yourself into a difficult situation and to figure out a way to either succeed or to learn from it. I mean, this is old school Tony Robbins right here, but Tony's whole definition of success is, did I learn from an experience? And if that is how you're going to define success, then you have a lot more latitude to go out and experiment and try new things and live a life of adventure.
And now kind of looking back and you're wiser beyond your years. And, what do you think makes a man? That's the question right there. Just what makes a man?
Whew. Oh man, that's a loaded question right there. That is a big, big question. I was actually just at a panel on masculinity. Like, listen to people. Like, I listened. It was funny. It was like Tucker Max, two evolutionary biologists, and two like fitness guys, like talking about like what is masculinity. Nobody, I think, has a good definition of it today. I mean, I think that one of the emerging definitions is um, there are hallmarks of masculinity, and one of those things is accepting competition and embracing competition, both against yourself and against others. Another one is, I would clearly and affirmatively say this is a part of masculinity, is living life in the face of challenges and in the face of rejection, and accepting that you are going to receive considerable rejection and face considerable challenge. You discover your purpose as you overcome these challenges and as you realize how you deal with rejection. That would be a big one. Those are two of the big ones. Living life in the face of challenges and in the face of rejection it seems to be a hallmark of masculinity.
So it seems like overcoming adversity and challenge, despite difficult circumstances, would be a good point there. And Jonathan, what are your three most influential books and why?
Man, it keeps changing. Ken Wilber, A Brief History of Everything, it's incredible. It's dense. It's not as dense as some of his other work, but it's mind blowing. That one would definitely be up there. Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance was another big one. Just my notion of conception of self and what is reality. And then I'll throw a business one out there too. I think my favorite business book is called How to Get Rich. It's by Felix Dennis. He's the publisher of Maxim magazine. And I've read some other. You know what? There's a fourth one I got to add. My favorite fiction book is called Shantaram by Gregory David Peck. I want to say Gregory David Roberts. Yeah, all four of those were like just mind-blowing. The first two sort of on a philosophical, how I see the world perspective, and the third one in terms of like how I approach business. It's a terrible, terrible name, kind of like the girlfriend activation system, but a name that definitely like it polarizes, it captures your attention, and that book is just incredible. And then Shantaram is, if you liked The Conference for Men, you will love Shantaram. I can tell you that.
All right, I'll have to check out some of those books. I've read the How to Get Rich by Felix Dennis, and yeah, the name kind of throws you off, but the content is really good. And he's actually one of the wealthiest men in all of the UK, and he wrote a book on how he did it. So that's a good one, How to Get Rich by Felix Dennis. You can pick up one of these books for free at kfmbook.com. That would be a free audiobook with Audible. So kfmbook.com. And Jonathan, I have a fun scenario here for you. It's I usually like this question a lot, just as much as most of the guests in the audience does. But all right, the scenario is you have 60 seconds with your 20-year-old self. What would you tell him to do, and what would you tell him not to do?
I made a lot of sacrifices to stay in relationships with women who, because I was afraid to not be in relationships with women. So that would be just right off the bat, unless you are like 100% amazingly committed to this person, pursue the thing that is going to make you the best person. And if I may, I'd like to share two little anecdotes about that.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, great. So when I was graduating college at the age of 26, I had been dating this girl for 2 years. And even at 26, I was still, I'd learned how to like talk to girls and pick up girls, and I was good at like meeting girls, but like I was still very insecure and needy. So this girl and we'd been together for a few years, and we were trying to figure out what to do with our lives. I was running the pickup company at the time, but I was running it, and I was kind of this guy's bitch, and I wasn't like, the CEO. I was just the manager. And so she wanted to go back to Virginia to figure out her life before going to law school. And I was like, yeah, I'll just, come to Virginia with you, because I don't have shit else to do, and I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, and I hope things are going to work out with this company. She ended up breaking up with me, which was exceedingly painful because I had such a sense of like self-worth based around that relationship. But it was also like one of the best things to happen to me, because it forced me to make difficult decisions, which I was afraid of making, where I would move, what I would do. That laid the groundwork for me to move to New York. And, so that was that, like, just, having this girl like break up with me because she knew it was what was best for me. that was very powerful. And along those lines, there was another time when I was offered to join a startup. I was given an offer to join a startup that was led by the guy who had placed most of Apple's executive team, when Steve Jobs came back. So Steve Jobs came back, he hired this guy, Dan, and he's like, Dan, find me incredible executives. That's a very abbreviated version of it, but Dan is a incredible recruiter and talent manager. And he gave me an offer. He said, hey, come live with me. I'm starting this new business. I'll buy you a MacBook Pro, a surfboard, and you'll learn from me. And I'll give you a nice salary, like nothing huge. And I was dating a girl who I liked and who I was pretty obsessed with. But if I had been thinking not in fear, but not in fear of what I was going to lose, but in expectation of what my life could be. If I was thinking in terms of my purpose and mission, and if I was thinking about how can I develop skills, network, self-worth, self-reliance that exists outside of any one particular woman, the choice would have been drop dead simple. It would have been, go hang out with this guy, learn to surf, and develop new skills and elevate my value as a human being. But I chose fear, and I chose to stay in this relationship. And I wanted to be safe, and I didn't want to have my little heart broken. And the sad thing is that relationship ended 3 months later in a ball of fire. Yeah.
Oh my
God.
gosh.
And by that time, the job wasn't available. So I think those are two good examples. But I think that, even talking to this guy today, he's the guy I mentioned earlier, he's 33, and he is literally operating with the same mental schema that I had at the time. And that's sad for me, to see that, but it's also why I want to talk to him about this. And it's so hard to move beyond that, because it requires it's clear that you're all about the hero's journey. The hero's journey is all about transcendence and overcoming of challenges. And
it makes the story.
Yeah, it's like the story of your life is. I was talking to guys about would you rather. Okay, let's look at two musicians like Jay-Z and Dashboard Confessional. I don't know if you remember Dashboard, but
Yeah, I do.
All their songs were about being a pussy and how attached and committed he is to this one girl who broke his heart. And then Jay-Z songs is every song is I'm a fucking winner. That's it. So what story are you going to tell yourself about the life that you've lived, about the person you are, about the trajectory of your life? Is it that you are a champion or a chump? Is it that you overcome adversity, that the things in your past have been learning experiences and setbacks? Or is it that you have transcended, that you have lived through them, that you have gained wisdom, knowledge, and self-worth that you're going to take into the next phase of your life? And I think that, again, just looking back to what I was doing back then, I was so afraid to embrace the journey and to embrace the risk and to embrace the uncertainty. And I literally had to get pushed off a fucking cliff. No, not a cliff, not literally pushed off a cliff, but metaphorically get pushed off a cliff in the most literal way possible. So to stop living in fear of uncertainty and of and of who I could be and who I could be without a woman telling me who I could be, or without, some external validation.
All right, that was definitely longer than 60 seconds, but it was good content, so I'll let it slide. And Dashboard Confessional, I haven't thought of that band since I was in middle school or something. I don't know what that was, but I mean, that poor guy has to sing about his ex-girlfriend for years and years. He's just a continue
Yeah.
Talk about living in the past. I mean, at least come up with a new girl, or get some new content, something, some more stuff to cry about.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully he's come up with some new songs.
All right. So towards the end of the show, I usually jump into philosophy on life, and we've gone pretty long. So what I think we can do is, I usually do an action item, or I challenge the listeners to take some action. And how about we come up together with some sort of challenge, like a 30-day challenge that's going to help the guys listening, improve their dating life?
Yeah, sure. That'd be great. We'll do it. So a 30-day challenge to get a girlfriend. I'd say the first thing I would tell you is, if you're not already exercising, start going to the gym. And that's not because you need an amazing body, but it's because that exercising makes you feel better about yourself. It builds confidence and it boosts your hormone levels and all those amazing, wonderful brain chemicals in all the right ways. So, stop watching porn, start going to the gym, stop eating Cheetos, stop playing Xbox, start getting active and getting the fuck out there. That would be my very first thing. And if a guy is not willing to do those things, then those, dude, like porn, video games, and processed food are like the scourge of modern man. So I just tell them, like, yeah, it is.
It's instant gratification. It's that instant pleasure. It's fun. The result.
Exactly. It's safe. It requires no risk, and it satisfies our most basic needs without excessive drama or risk. So that's why they're holding us back. So yeah, I'd say quit all that stuff. In terms of going out and meeting people, I mean, if you're not online, get on Tinder, get on OkCupid. I haven't been single for years, but I have plenty of friends who are, and they're doing an awesome job just being online. And if there's any resistance from any guy about being online, I would just say, listen, do it in addition to meeting girls in real life. Don't do it exclusively.
Right. I think that's a good point there.
Yeah.
Don't hide behind a computer. Like, get out there, but maximize your results if you can.
Yeah, I mean, maximize your channels. It's like with marketing, right? You don't want to just have affiliates or just do media buying. You want to just do search engine optimization. You want to do everything. So maximize your channels, for exposure to women, and maximize the amount of interactions that you're having with women. I think a great rule is to spend as much time trying to interact with and meet new women as you would with a girlfriend if you were in a relationship. So if you'd spend, I'm talking like quality devoted time. If you'd spend like 1 hour a night with her, or 2 hours a night with her, or 4 hours a night with her, then that's how much time you should be spending trying to, actively be social and meet new women. So that'd be my next thing, is get online. Third thing would be if you have a social group, great, just start spending more time with them. If not, I'd say just start being more social. I'm all in favor of like going out to bars, and if you're a single guy, like talking to girls, picking up girls. But, most of my girlfriends I've met have been through like social circle and similar type stuff. So I'd say, get active on like Meetup. I don't know if people still use meetup.com, but like just find clubs that, have stuff that you're interested in. Join a sports team, join a class, anything to just start being fucking social and start putting yourself in situations where there are going to be women. So now you've got this you're building some social momentum, and this is really important. It's just like going to the gym. First week back in the gym, you're dead. And then you start kind of getting into the groove of it, and you're like, okay, you know what? Like, this is actually good, and I'm getting good results. There's going to be like a delay between the feedback, like the positive feedback that you're looking for, and the start of the effort. And, you've just got to accept that there's going to be like a 2-week, 3-week delay between when you start putting the effort and when it starts paying off. And just know that going into it if you're about like building your social life and being active. And take it from there. So just start going out, start talking to girls, getting some numbers. It'd be difficult to get into the checklist about how to get numbers, but I did give you some stuff on living in the moment, flirting with the future. I gave you a really simple way to just just approach girls and ask for their numbers. I mean, you can do that. But yeah, I mean, I think all three of those things. Listen, like here's the final point. And once you finally start dating and you get some momentum with dating, a lot of stuff becomes easier, and you start figuring out a lot of stuff on your own. The problem that most guys have is they don't, to take a sales metaphor, they don't fill their funnel. They're not putting too much effort into actually being social and to meeting a lot of new women. So like when they do actually meet that one woman who they really like, there's such heightened expectations, and there's, so little other experience to contrast it against. They're like, it's all or nothing. But if you look at your social life as an investment, and you're willing to take the long view, and you're willing to say, okay, I'm going to get online and go out and be social and just join a lot of activities, do cool shit that I like doing in my life. Hell, I'll go skydiving and see if I like I always tell guys, like, do stuff that, like, if you're really serious about this, like, do stuff that's going to frighten you. Like, do stuff that's new, do stuff that you're going to have a cool new story with. I mean, if you're really committed to this and you want to do a 30-day challenge, go do something that is going to give you an amazing story to tell a girl the next time you're out at a bar. Something that you've always done or always wanted to do, something that you've been afraid of doing for your whole life, and something that, again, is going to just give you this great story to tell a girl in the bar. So yeah, I mean, I think if you just create momentum in your life, you look at your social life as an investment, and you stop doing the bad things, you start doing the good things 2 to 3 weeks from now, your funnel is going to be a little bit more full of quote unquote prospects. And now, dating becomes less of an all or nothing thing. You can start having fun with it. You start deciding, who do I want to have a long-term relationship with? Who do I want to just, have some fun with in the short term? And, you start, living in abundance, which is a phrase that I think we all like around here.
And I'll close up the 30-day challenge here with just imagine you're listening to this and you're just like, wow, that sounds great. Like, oh, I want to do that. Imagine me doing that and talking to all these girls and, being online, dating profile and, messaging girls and going on dates. That sounds fun. But also imagine if you just don't do anything. If you just 30 days goes by and you're exactly where you were. And maybe you're still listening to this podcast, which I think after a certain point, you should stop listening to this podcast and start taking massive action on all the things that you've written down and all the goals that you have for your life and just come back to this one you want. But imagine that you do go out and do the 30-day challenge. Imagine where you're going to be. Imagine what that's going to feel like 30 days from now, having gone out and talked to girls, having spent hours, out just having a good time with friends and chatting up and being social and going to different events and putting yourself out there and trying new things and doing things that step out of your comfort zone. Imagine what that would feel like 30 days from now. Imagine all that experience you're going to have. You can either do it now and start today, or you can come back to this episode weeks or months or even years from now and start. Imagine where you would be 6 months from now if you continued the challenge and you just made it a part of your life, because that's really the goal. So just think about that as we move forward and close down here. So Jonathan, now let's go into what's exciting you today.
What's exciting me today? We have some great new members of our, this is so funny for me to answer this question because it's such an old man answer. It's like, we have some great new members of our team, and we've been working through some intense operational challenges in the business that are finally like freeing up my capacity to enjoy life and read again. I've been like doing nothing but like accounting and legal for the last 2 months. And, I can finally focus on producing new content and writing and reading again and getting back and getting more connected with guys who find us. So that's what's got me excited, what's getting me up in the morning. I am currently half a block from the beach in Venice, California, and trying to get back into surfing. So that is getting me up in the morning. Yeah, man, I'm just excited I'll tell you what, I'm excited about having conversations like this one, because I'm serious, man, because it's I've been banging this drum for a long time, but I think because we've been doing, direct marketing and not a whole lot of podcasting and blogging and all that, we've kind of like been this under the radar company that, I think I told you we got like tens and tens of thousands of members in our community and hundreds of thousands on our mailing list. And it's encouraging for me and exciting for me to like I said, be having conversations like this where I'm like, wow, I've been away, like plugging away at like media buying and direct marketing for years. And like the state of dialogue in men's advice has evolved considerably. Since I was last doing like a lot of podcasts and like media and stuff. So that's what's got me excited. And I am excited to see the response to this, and also, what happens with your business here and where you take it.
All right, Jonathan Hudson, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your story, your life lessons, and journey with my community here at Knowledge for Men. And I like the how we worked on the challenge together at the end, and you put together a really cool strategy for guys to do a 30-day challenge. So I'm excited for that and to hear some of the results from the guys. So if you're listening and you take this challenge and you accept the 30-day challenge, then be sure to shoot an email over to me at andrew@knowledgeformen.com. All right, Jonathan.
Thanks a lot for having me, man. It was my pleasure. And to all those listening, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast show. It's been a pleasure having you be a part of a thriving community of men who want to crush it in all aspects of life. I'm on a mission here to inspire millions of guys, and with your help, we're going to make a dent in the universe. Check out knowledgeformen.com for a ton of free content that's designed to help you live a remarkable life. Again, that's knowledgeformen.com. I hope to see you there. And always remember, 2014 is the official year of the crush, where we take action to get the life we've always dreamed of. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, and until next time, let's do it.